Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending and welcome. My name is Isela Bravo. I am the Community Liaison for the County Executive Fitzwater, and we are going to start our program for Deaf History Month. I'd like to invite you all to stand as we will be having the Star Spangled Banner done. We are going to be having a volunteer from our Maryland School for the Deaf, Valeria Rentas Ortiz, if you can come up here so we can please do the Star Spangled Banner. There she is. Yay. Please stand.
Please stand. Oops, sorry.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we approached were so gallantly streaming, and the rock is running the bombs bursting in gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the
Actually, if you would please remain standing, we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce County Executive Fitzwater.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It is incredible to see this room full of folks today, and I'm so honored to have each of you here with us. Thank you. I want to make sure that I recognize some of my fellow elected officials that are also here today. We have our County Council President Brad Young here, and also our Council Member Renee Knapp. They're both your at-large council members, so they represent the entire county. Thank you for being here. We also have from Representative Congresswoman April McLean Delaney's office, Sanjay George, who's here to represent the Congresswoman. Thank you, Sanjay, for being here. We are very honored and pleased to host our second annual event honoring Deaf History Month. I want to thank the Maryland School for the Deaf and the Maryland Deaf Community Center for helping support this event, and also our own Frederick County Commission on Disabilities for all of your assistance in putting together today's program. If you're a member of the Frederick County Commission for Disabilities, could you please stand and be recognized? Thank you, guys. As I know you all know, Frederick County has a large and thriving deaf and hard of hearing community with a long history that we're excited to celebrate today and learn more about together. Frederick County is proud of our entire community, and we strive to serve each and every member of our community so that they can all meet their full potential. Events such as today's help us to better understand the needs of members of our community, and we're all better when we're able to serve our entire community. I am so proud to serve as the county executive of a community that truly honors and respects and expects diversity, inclusion, and the celebration of what brings us all together, and that each and every one of us have something to offer to our community. It's more important now than ever that we recognize that we are stronger when every member of our community feels seen and feels recognized for everything that they bring to the table, everything that they offer to make our community better. We know that in Frederick County government, it's not only our role, but it's truly our responsibility to recognize the needs of a diverse community and to ensure that our services can meet those needs, and in some cases can be life-saving. For instance, our county has a history of ensuring emergency services are available for our deaf and hard of hearing community. We had the very first emergency communications center, then called Central Alarm, in the early 1970s to create a special phone number specifically for the deaf community. A special teletype and telephone was installed, which required a massive AP teletype machine to be converted to receive the TTY. At first, our team received only a few emergency calls, but they also accommodated the deaf community by making medical appointments and assisting with other medical needs. So it became clear very quickly that this was a service that was needed. Frederick County was then the very first emergency communications center in the country to take the initiative to provide a means of a direct emergency communications for the deaf and hard of hearing. And more recently, our teams at our emergency communications and emergency management worked together to make our communications center one of the first public safety answering points, or PSAPs, in the nation to receive 911 text calls from Verizon, serving as an initial beta site. Ultimately, we became one of the first and very few emergency communications center to be capable to receive 911 texts from all 4 major cell carriers. Changes to existing services to improve accessibility require an understanding of needs, forethought, adaptability, and inclusive planning with the community. I'm proud that our county recognizes the individual needs of our many communities, and knowing that we still have more to learn to continue to make progress to make sure that everyone in our community can thrive. I'm excited that we all have the opportunity to learn more about our deaf and hard of hearing community and the history of our community here in Frederick County. And so thank you all for joining us for this opportunity to learn and to celebrate together. I get to make proclamations in my job as county executive. I sometimes joke that could be a little dangerous, but today I'm very excited that I have the honor of proclaiming this as Deaf History Month in Frederick County. Whereas people who identify as deaf and hard of hearing belong to a cultural and linguistic community with shared language, values, social rules of behavior, and history, which are passed down through generations. And whereas Frederick County has many thousands of deaf and hard of hearing residents who work in our community and elsewhere in the region. The county is home to the Maryland School for the Deaf and soon will be home to the Maryland Deaf Community Center. The deaf population of Frederick County includes individuals who use American Sign Language as their primary language and those who use hearing aids, assistive listening devices, or other forms of amplifications. And whereas Deaf History Month presents the opportunity to increase public awareness of the culture of people who are deaf and to promote equal access to information and services for deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind individuals. And whereas today we recognize Deaf History Month, the deaf community in Frederick County, and the organizations that increase awareness for our deaf population. Whereas our country was founded on the idea of equality for all, and we're proud that here in Frederick County, we know we are stronger when we are inclusive and consider all members of our community. We know it is our privilege to serve every member of this county, and we take that responsibility very seriously. We value the varied perspectives and experiences that make us stronger. So today, our celebration demonstrates our guiding principles as we celebrate and honor Deaf History Month and celebrate pride in the impact of the mental, physical, and emotional labor within the deaf and hard of hearing community of Frederick. Therefore, as the County Executive of Frederick County, I hereby proclaim April 2025 as Deaf History Month in Frederick County and commend this observance to all our residents. Presented this first day of April 2025. And I think I'll step over here to do a quick picture, and then I have a couple of certificates to give out.
Thank you, they said.
Before I take my seat, I do want to just recognize a few folks who have been instrumental in helping the deaf and hard of hearing community receive services, truly being advocates and helping to continue to teach us how we can be better and do better by the deaf and hard of hearing community. I know that two of them are here with us today, but I have certificates for the other two as well. So I want to recognize Joanne Griffin, Nan Crockett, Jenny Borgard, and Janice Martin. And I believe that Janice and Nan are here. So if you would come on up. And while you're walking up, I'm going to read the certificates. Thank you for your support of the deaf and hard of hearing community in Frederick County. We offer our appreciation and recognition of the tremendous impact you made in the lives of many through your advocacy. For Janice, as the first executive director of Deaf Services, you were key to providing essential services to our deaf community. On behalf of the citizens of Frederick County, I commend you for your contributions to the community and for helping to shape the bright future of Frederick County. Oh, okay. And we're getting to you, Nan. For Nan, thank you for your support of the deaf and hard of hearing community in Frederick County. We offer our appreciation and recognition of the tremendous impact you made in the lives of many through your advocacy and hard work, ensuring there were staff interpreters at our local hospital. Your efforts have made a lasting impact on many lives and have helped make Frederick County a place of belonging for our deaf community members. Thank you so much for your service to our community. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of today. And I see Marcia sneaking up here, so we'll see. Marcia always has something up her sleeve.
Yes, yes, yes. We in the deaf community really want to thank you. You and the mayor both have been so supportive over the last 5 years since Ms. Fitzwater even began. You've backed us up the whole entire time. Whenever we have events, you're always there, and we just thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would like to now call up Azarelia Herbold and Petra Ishak, both with the Maryland School for the Deaf. We have the small riser for you here.
Do you prefer me to stand or to kneel? Which do you want? Ready? Go ahead. Tell the people what this is about. What's the title?
It's a book called, and the author, is
Herself.
Herself, Herbold.
Yes.
first we went, who went to the
Where
airport?
did you go?
Dad, Mom, myself, and Max. The whole.
That's right. The whole family. We all took a trip.
I lost my suitcase, and with the cat toys, and I was sad.
You were sad.
It says Grandma.
I miss Grandma.
I miss Grandma.
You did miss Grandma.
And my dad found my suitcase.
And how did you feel?
I was happy.
Take a bow. Petra, Aisha.
This is about dragonflies.
Written by Petra.
Isaac. They have three bodies, three body parts. A thorax, a head, and they have 6 legs and 2 large eyes and 4 wings. The stomach is long, and long and thin as a pencil. Dragonflies live near lakes, rivers, and ponds.
I'm signing for them. You're good.
And they can eat. Dragonflies like to eat ice cream, mosquitoes and butterflies, moths, and mosquitoes and wasps.
And other dragonflies.
And other dragonflies. The life of a dragonfly, their eggs are hatched in the water, like a lake or a pond. And then they start to grow, and they become larvae. And the new ones grow, and in the end, the adults, they go to search for their food. When the dragon flies, they can fly forward, backwards, up, down, and they can stationary, hover as they fly. And you can ask about dragonflies. There are 3,000 different species of dragonflies. My favorite dragonfly are called butterfly dragonflies. More amazing proof that dragonflies are deaf. They have the ability.
Sharp eyes.
They do not smell. Their vision is good. The end. I got that part.
Jackie was the one feeding.
Thank you so much to our young authors. Can we give them another bit of appreciation? Takes a lot to come up here. So next we will have our panelists. I'll go ahead and move. We're going to do a little moving up here, and we'll be right back. Okay, I'd like to invite Sam Sonnestrol up. He will be speaking today about changes at Maryland School of Deaf and the evolving deaf population in Frederick.
Do you mind, can I put my papers on a podium or something? Oh, perfect, thank you. Thank you. Hello, I am Sam. And they asked me to talk a little bit about the deaf here in Frederick County. So to put it all into scope of all these years in a few minutes will be a little difficult. But as you know, when you walk downtown, you see many hearing people along with the deaf people, and the hearing people are signing. And the hearing people are signing throughout the community. And has that always been the case in Frederick? Not at all. Frederick has changed so much. The deaf community has changed, and so has the Frederick community. And both communities have benefited from each. It's not only the services that we have gotten from the county, but it's also the deaf community and its celebrations that give back to the Frederick community as well. And looking in the past, we can look where we are in the present and see where we will go in the future. In the past, Frederick was small. There was just a few thousand people living here. And as Frederick grew, there was hardly any deaf population, even before the school was established. But still, Frederick itself is an important place within the state. Frederick has many historical events that took place, not only within the deaf community, but generally in history. And Frederick, here in the state of Maryland, you know, if you're born, where did you go as a deaf child? You would go to the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf in Pennsylvania. And later, Kendall School was established in 1868 in Washington, D.C. So students were sent to the Kendall School. But here in the state of Maryland, there was no school for the deaf. Then one family, Imes, I-J-A-M-S, you know, Imesville, it was that family, Imes, they had 2 deaf children. And they didn't know where to send their children. Should they go to Kendall? So they did send it. Now hold that thought a second. And looking at the hearing communities, they're well-known hearing families that had deaf children. The Lotz family, you're familiar with that name, right?
They have a farm next to the Maryland School for the Deaf.
And there's that, they had the wall up there by the farm. The Baker family. And you see the name Baker family with Baker Park. It is that family, the Baker family. The Schley family. It was a strong German family that has been here for years in Frederick, the Schley family. The Steiner family, another strong German family heritage here in the county. And in Baltimore, there was the Enoch Pratt family. And they have the famous library there now named after the Pratt Free Library. It was the first free library in the United States. But these names that I just said are the well-known hearing families within the county. But within these hearing families, they had something in common. Do you know what that is? They had deaf children? Not necessarily. They were all on the Maryland School for the Deaf's board. All of them. served on the board. People didn't realize, but the community has been involved with the School for the Deaf and getting it established. Now, when we look back at the Imes family that I mentioned, where they had 2 children, they didn't want to really send their children to Kendall. And so as they talked with the Maryland government, they decided, let's put the seed in and grow the School for the Deaf here in Frederick. And from there, we have grown. Now let's flash forward to where I entered the Maryland School for the Deaf in '63. There was 20,000 people here. And my father drove me to the Maryland School for the Deaf, and when you go over the hill, you see Frederick down there, and there was only one water tower, and that was the water tower next to the School for the Deaf. Now when you come over that hill, there are several water towers. You know, I don't know where the School for the Deaf is anymore by identifying a water tower. But what we do know is one thing I want to add about the physical education teacher. Health classes. On Mondays, the teacher would always call one student and ask them, what did you do on the weekend? And if that person lived, and if that person lived near Baltimore, they would say everything was fine, nothing unusually happened, and the teacher would say, no, I heard the police caught you for speeding on Saturday on 70. And everybody was like, well, yeah, the individual was like, yeah. And I was like, how did the police come to Maryland and tell the teacher that I got caught for speeding? And then how did this come to be? Well, if I go back and I look through kind of the history, there was Uriah Shockley and Beatrice, his wife. Those two, Uriah is always considered the first deaf driver in the state of Maryland, kind of. Really, it was a chauffeur license. His mother chauffeured him around. But Uriah, at that time when he was young, could not get a driver's license. Maryland was very late in issuing driver's license to deaf individuals. So here we are. And when you drive and enter, if a deaf person is driving and they enter the state of Maryland, they had to switch drivers because a deaf person was not allowed to drive in the state. So Major Lee, a Maryland School for the Deaf superintendent, he fought for the right for deaf people to earn a driver's license. But realize this. You had to apply through Bajerly, the superintendent. And if he gave you permission, then you can get your driver's license. Can you imagine that? A superintendent is the one to issue it and give you permission. But that happened in the 1920s. So now we have the 1960s and 70s. The deaf and the police worked together and realized that it became the center of our deaf world here in Maryland. It's just interesting. Another example of growth that we see that is interesting is a woman by the name of Florence Dobb. She was known as an art teacher at the Maryland School for the Deaf for 51 years. But as we learned different things about it, she was a hearing individual. Her hearing, she was latent deaf, but she also established a women's college that is also called Hood. So she was the chair of the art department, I think, for like 27 years at Hood College. At the same time, she was teaching at MSD. But not only that, she established the Frederick Arts Club. And that was years ago. In the art club, what's fascinating about it is the Frederick community is well known about its art community, right? And the Maryland School for the Deaf had an influence upon that because of this lady. Excuse me a second. I'm jumping all over my script here. within a few incidences that we've seen in history here, I really could explain more, but I know our time is limited, and I want to respect the other speakers' times and your time as well. But let me just stop right here at the historical thing that I was talking about and looking at what's happening currently. I got to look for numbers here. Hold on a second. Oh, okay. I'm all confused with my papers here. I'm sorry. I've been switching papers with the interpreters. I'm not exact with the numbers right now. I can't find it. But currently, Maryland School for the Deaf has almost 500 students. 471. Oh, thank you. Yeah, 471. And for employees, I think it has oh, got it. Great. Sorry about that. 429 employees at the Maryland School for the Deaf. So if you imagine 429 employees, that includes part-time and full-time. So imagine the economic impact the school has on the community here in Frederick. Not only that, but think of Maryland School for the Deaf itself and the families that the school brings that moves into the county. So the economics, the taxes, the business. So the economical impact on the county is there, and it also impacts the businesses that these people frequent. So Frederick really benefits from the deaf community being here. And not only that, the Maryland School employees used to all live in Frederick, and it was called, that was the Frederick Deaf Community. So what was the deaf community? The deaf community are people who have nothing to do with the Maryland School for the Deaf. Some work down for the federal government, some work with the post office, they're employed in other places. People who are retiring deaf are moving to Frederick. So the transition is really happening. So the Frederick City and County is growing, and so is the Maryland Deaf community. And now we have the Maryland Deaf CC coming. So what a challenge this is going to be, because there are needs for the deaf coming into the county, and those needs are varied. And just like in Frederick, you have varied needs. So it's interesting to see how we're going to progress forward in the future. I think it's great that we have wonderful cooperation between Frederick County and the Frederick deaf community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to introduce Mary Lynn Lowley now. And she will be providing an overview of the establishment of deaf services in Frederick.
Is that me or you?
I'll go this time. Hello, everybody. Everybody signs me like this, and it's great to see everybody here to help us celebrate Frederick's Deaf History Month. The partnership between the Frederick government, the deaf community, it is a great relationship for the past 10 years. Yeah, I was born in 1943. In 2 months, I'll be 82. Oh, that means my life has been what? It has evolved over the years. You know, I went to Gallaudet University, and I was like, Gallaudet. I was like, wow. The accessibility, I understood my teachers. I could interact. I could have social activities with other students. My world just opened up, and it's all thankful to the sign language. When I was a student, signing became recognized as a language. American Sign Language was recognized as a language, and they upgraded that we needed ASL as a professional, pure language. The life changes that, we could communicate freely. And I graduated Gallaudet, and I came to the Maryland School for the Deaf, and I was like, wow, it was different. The middle school and high school, they used sign language, but it was very oral. It was sim-comming, and they were signing, regardless how good your speech was, you had to use the oral portions of it. While the elementary school, it was all oral, and it was constant. So the language development wasn't the best in the elementary years. And then outside of the school for the deaf, there was nothing accessible, nothing outside. There was no interpreting services, no captioning, telephone relay services. There was none of that. So at school, it was so nice. Once you left the school, it wasn't so good. So a group of deaf individuals gathered together, and there was a woman named Mary Sue Boxer. She was in California on vacation, and there was a small town. You know, it was a larger town, and they had relay services, and there was a private business there that started providing those services, and she told the group of us about that. And we were talking, and I said, why don't we set up our own relay service? Thought, good idea. So we contacted a hearing business called All Call Answering Services. It was a man named Mr. Harvey who owned that business. So we reached out to him, and we started working back and forth, and it seemed to be moving. It was like, okay. So we gave him our TTYs and, you know, the phone connections, and went through everything so he had it. So people would call them, they would type, and then they would read the message and type back and read, and they became our relay operators. And that started, and that was in 1977 when we established that. Up until that time, and then 1977, we finally had telephone services. I'm going through here. By the end of 1978, 189 calls. There were 189 calls. That's such a small number. It's such a cute number. But by the time that grew, what was the numbers again? You have those numbers. I'm not finding the numbers on my script like you.
1,156.
1,156. It kept growing. So today, the phone relay services, that's all state of Maryland services by law, thanks to the action that happened with the deaf community here. So the deaf community took that endeavor on themselves. And how the relay services started in Frederick, there were 3 organizations. The National Rural, it was an insurance company back then, the National Rural Society, the Deaf Club, and Gallaudet University's Alumni Association, GUAA. They gave $50, $150. That was such a small amount, but it was a lot of money at that time. They gave to establish it through a deaf organization, deaf individuals, and then advocating to achieve the end result. You know, we also set up what's called the Frederick Telecom Association, you know, and that was changed to the Frederick Services for the Hearing Impaired. Back then that was the word used, hearing impaired. It was an acceptable term. Now we frown on that. That's not as acceptable. It's not politically correct, but we changed it to the Deaf Accessibility Services, DAS. You know, and that we made those modifications to attract people to the area. That's, you know, we wanted a center, but we never had a home for our deaf services. We'd have it, it would fall through. It would fall through every time we thought we would get one. The first home was downtown Frederick on 15 South Carroll Street. 15, it was a small on the second floor we had. I don't know if you can recall that. Y'all are too young. This was all before your time, I'm sorry. So that's what it was. So then we moved to Lutz Farm. You know, I worked there, and there was a house, you know, on the campus there, and then they were gonna demolish that building. You know, they planned to, you know, so then we moved to, where'd we move to? We moved, and we moved, and we moved, and we end up the last one, the Prospect Center, the shopping center, and we moved, and that was the last. And the last time we had a center was 20. What year was that? 2011. 2011. We had a variety of different places and a lot of work, and the deaf people with partnerships with the United Way. The United Way sponsored us. At first, we had to get into business and then apply for the funding from the United Way, and we worked with them, but it was extremely complicated process because we had to turn in our business, our financial records, and so forth every year, but also we had to continue doing our own fundraising. And we had a lot of fundraising activities, golf tournaments, auctions, all kinds of different events that we would host for fundraising. It was extremely busy times. And then, we had the relay services, telecommunications relay services, and went to the state, and then we switched to interpreting. And we started to provide interpreting services, and we provided, training to the police departments, to the Frederick Hospital. We would do training. And so today, the police department seems to know what to do. They have the equipment for the 911 and the PSAPs there now. So, also, in I can't remember the year, the Deaf Access Services, they opened child care services for deaf and hearing children to intermingle. The first of its kind in the state of Maryland. Frederick is the first with relay services for the deaf, the first with full-time interpreting services in the hospital, the first, continuously the first. I'm proud to live here in Frederick. Now, in 2018, was the start of the movement for the Maryland Deaf Community Center. Historically, the history has paved the way for better accessibility and a better standard of life for deaf people here in Frederick. I feel like I go to the grocery store, I order something, oh, you're deaf, hi, and they'll work with us. They know how to communicate with us, and we're not kind of struggling there and trying to find a way, and they're staring at us like, what the heck, and we're not facing that at all here in Frederick, and that is amazing. So, that's the story I have for you. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Sam said there was a correlation between the police department, and the Maryland and the community here and the School for the Deaf. I came here in 1966. I would go downtown, order a drink. That's normal, right? That's normal. But I was cautioned by the superintendent. Yeah, don't drink in public. That doesn't look good for the deaf community. I was like, okay. I had to act in a certain manner to be careful how I behaved in front of hearing people as a reflection of the deaf community. Wow. And then so you remember that. So that was the story today. Don't you go, you can drink, fool around, do whatever you want to without the superintendent learning about it now.
Me.
It wasn't coffee.
Thank you so much. And it's really good to have that information. I would now like to call up Jackie Kanuki, who will talk about the creation of FMH's staff interpreters and its impact on accessibility on the local healthcare system.
Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to talk about interpreting services. We've always had interpreters, but it was always by the skin of our teeth trying to find somebody. Frederick Hospital, FMH, Frederick Memorial Hospital, when I arrived here in 1982 from Gallaudet, had first employed here at MSD, and I had a hammer hit my thumb. I had to go to the hospital, and there was no interpreter. I had to look for somebody, but that was my first experience with, no parents here helping me out. I was all on my own. Later, when I was pregnant, the hospital said, bring your friend. I said, bring my friend. So I had to ask my friend to come and interpret for me. And Frederick Memorial Hospital said they would pay my friend to interpret for me. And so I raised my children. I got an interpreter. But again, it was by the skin of the teeth, the word of mouth. The hospital really should be responsible, not me as an individual. So in 1996, I started working, as Mary Lynn mentioned, with the office here that we set up in Frederick. And my role was to interface with the community. So I was like, okay, I had to look at ASL and make it available. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. And I didn't want to just teach ASL. I wanted to do more educational. I wanted all kinds of programs so I could collaborate with different programs here in the county, the police and various agencies. And then I met Nan, the one who just got the certificate today, Nan Crockett. She was such a key person. She arrived on the site and she saw that there were not enough services, not only for the deaf, but for other speaking languages. And this population seemed to be growing in the county. So Nan noticed this, and I was working with her saying we needed services. We needed to have a staff interpreter at the hospital. And she was like, I don't know if we can do that. So we were really looking at it because we know that the hospital really needs to have transparency so you have trust in the communication that takes place. If the families do not have communication, the results can be tremendous, dramatic even. So Nan even decided, taking on this role by herself, attending workshops, getting training. She would go across the country. She would talk with different doctor offices, making sure that accessibility was there for the deaf community. And she was persistent in this charge. And then she hired a woman. Her name is Maria. She was great on civil rights. So Nan worked with Maria, and looking at the law, I forget ADA when that started exactly, but 1990, thank you. But looking at that ADA law, the excitement was there, but the practice wasn't there. So we knew we had to do something. So ironically, Elizabeth Chung, she's our ally, right? She was such an advocate for the Spanish-speaking community and other speaking communities in doctors' offices and whatnot across the county. Small world. But anyways, this influenced Nan, and she continued with her advocacy. And she fought to get a staff interpreter. And there were a lot of obstacles she ran into, but she was persistent. And I just learned this. They had a full-time Spanish interpreter. I don't know if you remember my response to that, Nan. And I was like, Spanish, where's ASL? Oh, it'll come, baby steps. And I was a little taken back by that. And I was like, okay. So we proceeded on. And then Maria, who I mentioned, that worked with Nan, she left. And Nan went, great, I have a position open, and it's an hourly position. So she did a lot of footwork there, breaking through these obstacles, and was finally granted a full-time position as a full-time interpreter, and that position was shared between two people, Teresa Polsma and Janice Martin. They were the two interpreters, both working part-time, but being a full-time interpreter. There were obstacles. There were impasses that happened. The HIPAA was involved with all of this, so you had to have training. Interpreters had to be certified specially. You had to have nurse education. The doctors had to be educated. I was the one who was given this presentation and the training on how to work with the deaf community, and we see the Frederick community growing, especially from outside of Frederick. Deaf people outside of Frederick saw what was happening here, they were coming to Frederick Memorial Hospital because of the services that were being provided that weren't provided in their own home neighborhoods. And then joint, where am I on my paper? But a joint commission of, I forget exactly, medical, right? They recognized Frederick Memorial Hospital and all the services they were providing and making it accessible. And then Maryland State recognized Frederick Memorial Hospital. All of a sudden, Nan's getting all these phone calls as to how to improve their services in their hospitals. And you know, it was Frederick Memorial Hospital, but now it's FHH, right? The name has changed, but the growth is still there. And I think we now have 3 staff positions. Is that correct? I believe we have 3 staff positions now for interpreters, all through contracts. All right, I was talking about a specific year from 2009 to 2011, okay? That's really when I was working with Nan and getting the services there. And then we needed services for overnight services as well. So Nan and I worked together and we grew that as well. But the services that was providing at CSD closed. And many positions were cut, the contracts were cut, and Nan was like, oh my goodness, I'm still gonna be persistent, look for contractors to get other agencies in so we can continue to provide these services. Last year, my mother came to visit me, and she got ill, COVID. She went to the hospital, was there for 1 week here at FHH, and my mother was like, I couldn't believe the stream of interpreters that were coming. It was, the communication was there constantly. You know, here we have a community of interpreters because of Nan, so thank you so much, Nan. And today, as Mary Lynn said and Sam, people are moving to Frederick. Retired people are moving to Frederick because of the communication that is accessible here in the county. We do want to thank Nan for all your hard work through the years, Nan, fighting through those obstacles. But, you know, you had me right there. You had the Spanish I wanted, that ASL. And thank you, deaf community, for moving here to Frederick County and living here in Frederick County. And thank you, Jessica, for your recognition that we are here to stay. And we want to thank the interpreters who have been involved with interpreting, especially overnight, all day, around the county. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Linda Stoltz to come up and give us an update on our Deaf Community Center that we are hearing so much about.
You can see the picture over here that we have up on the easel. That's the color the building will be. That is, it's a beautiful, isn't it? All right. Okay. It is good seeing everybody, and I love seeing these increased numbers. You know, at Maryland School for the Deaf Museum last year was smaller, and this number of attendees is growing. Next year, it's going to be the 3rd annual. It's going to be at the Maryland Deaf Community Center. That's where we're hosting it next year for Deaf History Month. First, I want to thank Jessica Fitzwater, our county executive, and Isela Bravo, the communication liaison, for hosting this event. They have been a huge supporter of the deaf community, and I want to give you a round of applause. Now, we are utilizing Waynesboro Construction Company they're working on the Maryland Deaf Community Center. If you drive by, you might see it's leveling out. There used to be 2 houses there that we tore down, and they had basements, and we brought in a lot more soil to level out the land. And we're using bulldozers and heavy equipment to flatten the land, and that's being worked on. It's only going to be a 1-story facility. So we're moving along, and we're hoping it'll be ready this December, if the weather cooperates. It's beautiful outside now, so hopefully they're working on it. And once that's done, we're going to be putting in pipe, sewer, once all this leveling of the land is done and we get going. But our board and our staff, what we've been doing is we've been applying for a lot of grants. We're going to multiple different meetings with senators,
Senator Hollins.
Volans, and we're meeting with them and we're meeting with April McCain Delaney, and we're going to find out more late spring. If we're able to get some additional grants, we're crossing our fingers on that, and it's moving along. What we've been doing is we've been hosting ASL classes, and that from time, we have 2 classes at the Common Market, on 7th Street. They are always full, those classes. They're 6-week programs, and we get 20 students in each class. And every 6 weeks, we're turning over, and they're always full. There's a lot of motivation to learn American Sign Language. And we have ASL for Families in Middletown at the Methodist Church there, and 6-week programs there. And families with children can learn sign there at that Methodist Church. And twice a month, we're hosting bingo. A lot of people love that bingo at the Capitol Crave, and we thank them for allowing us to utilize their facility to raise funds for the MDCC. And we provide educational workshops monthly at various locations, about health, dementia, and the most recent one last Thursday was a guy named Phil Bravin. He's a deaf author. He wrote a book about the Deaf President Now movement, and he gave a lecture, and the community learned, and he's selling his book as well. And there's different events, like this Saturday, we're hosting a trivia night at Ballinger Creek, the rec center. So come on out. Let's see, we got prizes. Some money goes to helping the facility, but we got prizes, and we keep posting this. The board is completely volunteer and has been for 5 years. We're not giving up. We are passionate about seeing this happen. One big event, we will be hosting our first gala at Crestville Manor, Searsville Manor. So we invite you to come to Searsville Manor for that gala. We want to thank a lot of the people that continue to provide donations, grants, and so forth. It means a lot to us. Without you, those donations will make this happen. And I want you to be aware that there's a lot of other states that are extremely jealous. They're calling us nonstop. I have 2 video phones, and the MDC and my personal ones, I can get in calls every week. How did you get this? You're lucky. And we explain, and we share stories on how we can help the other states. But I'm proud. Maryland is a state that is supporting us to get this Deaf Community Center. I really need your help, though, in signing up to subscribe to the MDCC e-newsletter. I'll give you a business card. You can scan the QR code, and the numbers are increasing, and the data is critical for the state. Right now, we have about 1,800 people, 1,800 people subscribed, but there's deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind individual. We have 1.2 million people in the state. We only have 1,800 subscribers. We need that number closer to that 1.2. Hearing people, read our newsletter, learn about us. Children, we need to get that number up. A guy challenged us, and they asked how many subscribers, and he looked, and he said, that's all? And I said, I know. We need to get the word out. I need your assistance. And with the fundraising as well, we need your assistance. I saw these 2 little girls talking about their books they wrote. I went up and I said, look at that picture. That's for you. That's your future. Us older generations are doing this so you can have the good times. You have workshops, you have parties, you have that socialization at this facility. This facility is for the children of our future. All right, that's all I got. And here's the Maryland scarf, the Maryland flag scarf. I'm proud of it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Linda. We have some time for some questions. If anybody in the audience has a question for our panelists. Yes, Evan.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, on a baseline, where does the word deaf come from?
It's on our
It's on our forehead.
forehead.
It's been tattooed.
Really, the Bible mentions the word deaf as well. The word deaf is there in the Bible, the English transversion.
Any other questions? Okay, then I would, just one moment. Okay, I would very much like to invite Denali Boren up. She is our performer, also from the Maryland School of the Deaf.
He.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Hello, everyone. I'm Denali Boren. I'm a junior at the Maryland School for the Deaf. And I would just like to share a story here. The story really is about two mischievous kids at the Maryland School for the Deaf. They didn't care what the rules were at the school, whether elementary, middle school, or high school. They just broke the rules, and the administration didn't know what they were going to do. So they called the two kids into the principal's office to punish them, and they thought, who cares? I'm not interested in school. I don't care what the punishment will be. And so they're trying to figure out, the administration, how to teach these two kids a lesson. So they thought about a watch that was broke. And this watch would be something that would show the history of the Maryland School for the Deaf, a time. So they decided to teach these kids a lesson. So these two kids were like, oh, what? You're giving us a watch? What for? I don't need a watch. And they were like, no, we want to teach you a lesson. You take these watches. So the two students did. They went out, and they looked at the wristwatch, and they're like, what's the purpose of this for? And the wristwatch was broken. It wasn't even working. But when they pushed the button, all of a sudden they flashed back into time. And they looked around and they saw there was nothing here. The Hessian barracks that are on campus there, before MSD was there, before the Civil War was there, just the property was there. They flashed back into time. They were time traveling. And they really realized that this really impacted the school. The Hessian barracks was torn down, became the cafeteria. The school was established here. And they said, oh, let's look at another time. So they pushed the watch again, and they fast forward to 1868, when the school was set up. And they were like, look at the building, the old main building. It's set up. And 10 years later, George Viditz was here, and he's really is the great supporter of ASL language throughout the country, and he taught here at the school. And that happened here on this campus. Oh my goodness, and they were thankful for the school and what the school offered deaf kids. So they clicked the clock again, and they got into 1924, the Spanish flu period, and 1918, and they saw this, that there were 26 students on October of that year, 26 students contacted the Spanish flu, and they had to stay sequestered there. And they were trying to figure out how to stop the spread of the flu throughout the whole student body. And the students made it. Luckily, nobody died from the influenza. But that was a huge event that happened in the school's history, and really saw how everybody supported the deaf kids who were sick. Well, now that was 1918, so they click. And now they fast forward to 1988 and the deaf president now and everything that was taking place at Gallaudet and how that influenced MSD and how schools shut down to support the Deaf President Now movement at Gallaudet University and how they got rid of a hearing president that was selected to a deaf president. And it really, MSD here was very influential in all of this. You know, all of this different historical times that took place to now. And the superintendent at the Maryland School for the Deaf, he was even involved with Gallaudet in getting to during the DPN time. So when they click the wristwatch again, they step forward into Niall DeMarco becoming the next top model. He graduated from the School for the Deaf in 2007. I didn't realize that as we went through history.
Scott and Sheena.
Scott and Shayna, they came from the Maryland School for the Deaf. They climbing all these mountains around the world and even climbed Mount Everest. And they're an alumni of the School for the Deaf. So many things that were happening historically were seated here at the School for the Deaf. It was amazing, and we didn't even understand that as students. And we finally clicked the wristwatch and we got back to the present time. And we realized the value of the place that we were at. And we gave the wristwatch back to the administration, and we thanked them, and we reflected. We really cannot ignore all that has taken place here. We were important, and we need to work here, and we are so thankful for all that has happened, and we honor and respect the School for the Deaf. And we realize today, here we are in 2025, taking different paths, right? Continue to support and grow the deaf community, or do we take the path that makes the deaf community get annihilated and overcome? Do we support medical technology to eliminate the deaf? Which path are we going to take? And now we stand, and there's the road.
The fork in the road.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that wonderful tale. This concludes our presentation today. I am so thankful that you attended, and I look forward to next year.